What if the loneliest road you are walking right now is actually the most powerful road of your entire life? What if every person who left you, every door that closed on you, every moment where you stood completely alone in the dark, what if all of that was not destroying you, but secretly, silently, building you into something that could not have been built any other way? What if solitude is not your punishment, but your preparation? What if walking alone is not a sign that you have lost, but a sign that you are about to discover the most powerful version of yourself that has ever existed? Most people run from silence. Most people run from loneliness. Most people surround themselves with noise, distraction, and the approval of others because they are terrified of what they might find if they ever truly sat with themselves. But the ones who stayed, the ones who walked the empty road, the ones who trained when no one was watching and stood tall when no one was clapping, those are the ones who built something real, something permanent, something that no storm, no rejection, and no failure could ever take away. Stay with me, because what I am about to share with you could change the entire direction of your life. Plus, what if the loneliest road you are walking right now is actually the most powerful road of your entire life? What if every person who walked away from you, every opportunity that seemed to disappear, every night you spent sitting in silence wondering if any of this was worth it? What if all of that was not the universe punishing you, but the universe preparing you? What if the very thing you have been running away from, the silence, the solitude, the emptiness of walking a path that no one else seems to understand, what if that is precisely where your greatest strength is waiting to be found? I want you to stop for a moment, not physically, but mentally. I want you to stop the noise inside your head, the comparisons, the doubt, the endless scrolling through other people's highlight reels, and I want you to ask yourself one honest question. When was the last time you truly walked your own path? Not the path your family designed for you, not the path society decorated with promises of approval and comfort, not the path your friends are walking because it seems safe and familiar. Your path, the one that feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and completely, terrifyingly yours. Because here is what most people will never tell you. The path that is truly yours will rarely come with a crowd. It will rarely come with applause at the beginning. It will rarely come with guarantees or guidebooks or someone standing at the finish line holding a sign with your name on it. The genuine path, the path that leads to your deepest potential, your highest self, your most authentic power, that path is almost always walked alone, at least in the beginning, and the ones who are too afraid of that loneliness never discover what was waiting for them on the other side of it. Think about water. Water does not ask permission to flow. It does not wait for the rocks to move out of its way. It does not stop and complain that the path is too difficult or that no one told it which direction to go. Water simply moves. It finds a way, and over time, with patience and persistence and an absolutely relentless commitment to its nature, water carves through stone, not because it is violent, not because it is loud, but because it is consistent, because it never stops being what it is, and that is exactly what you must become, not the flood that destroys everything in one dramatic moment, but the river that shapes the entire landscape through the quiet, daily, unstoppable act of moving forward. The great tragedy of the modern world is this: we have forgotten how to be alone with ourselves. We have forgotten how to sit in silence without immediately reaching for our phones, our notifications, our endless streams of content that someone else created to fill the empty space inside us. We are living in the most connected age in human history, and yet we have never been more disconnected from ourselves. We know everything about celebrities, about strangers on the internet, about trending topics and viral moments, and we know almost nothing about who we truly are when the screen goes dark and the noise goes quiet and we are left alone with our own thoughts. And that disconnection from self, That is where all weakness begins. Not in failure, not in hardship, not in the challenges that life throws at you without warning. Weakness begins the moment you stop knowing yourself. Because when you do not know yourself, you become vulnerable to every opinion, every criticism, every comparison, every wave of pressure that the world sends in your direction. You become like a ship without an anchor, technically floating, technically moving, but ultimately at the mercy of whatever storm happens to come along. But when you know yourself, when you have sat in the silence and faced yourself honestly, when you have looked at your fears without flinching, when you have examined your patterns, your weaknesses, your deepest wounds, and still chosen to move forward, when you have done that work, you become something entirely different. You become anchored. And an anchored ship does not sink in a storm. It holds. It endures. It waits for the storm to pass, and then it sails again, stronger for having survived it. So how do you build that anchor? How do you build that version of yourself that holds firm when everything around you is shaking? The answer is simpler than most people want to believe and more demanding than most people are willing to accept. You build it through discipline, through daily, deliberate, consistent practice, through the decision made every single morning before the world wakes up and starts pulling at your attention, the decision to train, to grow, to strengthen, to improve, even when you do not feel like it, even when no one is watching, even when the results are not yet visible to anyone, including yourself. Understand this deeply. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are temporary. Feelings change with your sleep, your hunger, your mood, your circumstances. Feelings are influenced by the weather, by a conversation you had, by a song you heard. If you wait for motivation to carry you forward, you will spend most of your life standing still, waiting for a feeling that comes and goes like a visitor who never commits to staying. Motivation will get you started, but it will never be enough to keep you going through the long middle of the journey, the part that no one talks about, the part between the exciting beginning and the celebrated end, the long, quiet, unglamorous stretch of road where most people quietly give up and tell themselves a comfortable story about why it was not meant to be. Discipline is different. Discipline is not a feeling. It is a structure. It is a commitment you make to yourself that does not depend on how you feel when your alarm goes off in the dark of the morning. It is the agreement you have made with your future self that says, I will show up, regardless, every day. Because I have decided that who I am becoming matters more than how comfortable I am right now. And when you live by that agreement day after day, week after week, month after month, something extraordinary begins to happen. The discipline stops feeling like effort. It becomes identity. It becomes who you are. And once discipline becomes identity, you are no longer fighting yourself every morning. You are simply being yourself. And that is when the real building begins. Now, I want to talk about something that most people are afraid to hear, and that is this. You cannot build yourself if you are constantly performing for others. You cannot discover who you truly are if every action you take, every choice you make, every direction you move is filtered through the question of what other people will think. Seeking validation from the outside world is one of the most expensive habits a human being can develop because the price you pay is not money, the price you pay is yourself. Every time you shape your choices to fit someone else's approval, you chip away at your own authenticity. Every time you silence your instincts to avoid someone else's discomfort, you move further away from the person you were meant to become. The great masters throughout history, those who achieved genuine, lasting excellence in any field of human endeavor, they all shared one fundamental quality that is almost never celebrated because it is not dramatic or exciting. They were deeply, fiercely, almost obsessively inner-directed. Their compass did not point toward applause. It pointed toward mastery. It pointed toward truth. It pointed toward an internal standard of excellence that they held themselves to regardless of whether the world recognized it or not, and because they were inner directed, because they were not depending on the outside world to tell them they were doing well, they were able to push far beyond the limits that external validation would have placed on them. Because here is the truth about external validation: it always comes with a ceiling. When your motivation depends on other people's approval, you will only ever go as far as other people are willing to celebrate. But when your motivation comes from within, when it comes from your own unshakable commitment to becoming the best version of yourself, that has no ceiling, that is infinite. That is the kind of drive that carries people through decades of work, through failures that would break most people, through seasons of invisibility and doubt and struggle, all the way to the other side where something extraordinary is waiting. I want to speak directly to those of you who are in the difficult season right now, those of you who are walking the path alone and wondering if you made a mistake, those of you who are training, working, building, growing, and it feels like nothing is happening, like the effort is not connecting to results, like you are pouring everything you have into a vessel and the vessel seems to be leaking. I want you to hear this clearly, and I want you to carry it with you. Not all growth is visible. Some of the most important growth happens beneath the surface, in the roots, in the foundation, in the places you cannot see and the world cannot measure. Think about a tree. When a young tree is planted, for a long time you will see very little happening above the ground. The tree seems barely alive. It seems to be doing nothing. But beneath the surface, the roots are working. The roots are spreading, deepening, anchoring, building the invisible infrastructure that will one day support a massive, powerful, unmovable presence above the ground. And if you were to give up on that tree during that underground season, if you were to pull it out and throw it away because it does not yet look impressive, you would destroy something that was on its way to becoming extraordinary. You are that tree. And you must not let impatience convince you that because you cannot see the results yet, the work is not working. The roots are growing. The foundation is being laid. The invisible architecture of your future strength is being built right now, in the silence, in the struggle, in the season that feels like nothing is happening. Trust the process. Stay in the ground. Keep growing downward before you expect to grow upward. And let us talk about failure, because anyone who promises you a path to greatness without failure is either lying to you or has never actually walked the path themselves. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of the path to success. Every fall, every mistake, every moment where you tried and it did not work, that is not evidence that you are not capable. That is information. Precise, valuable, irreplaceable information about what needs to change, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be learned before you try again. The warrior who has never fallen does not know how to get up, and the warrior who does not know how to get up is not ready for the real battle. The path is there. The strength is inside you. The only question that has ever mattered is whether you are willing to walk.